Hello, hello, Pixel Poppers. If you don't know, my name is Jordan Jones-Brewster. I've been the sessions manager for this weekend at PixelPop Festival. I'll be here today. I'll be here tomorrow. But today, right now, is not about me. We have an amazing speaker about to come up. This is going to be the diversity conversation you need but don't want with Tanya DePass. Tanya is the founder and director of I Need Diverse Games, Twitch partner, cast member of Rivals of Waterdeep and actual play live streams on the official Dungeons & Dragons Twitch channel, and the co-developer of the RPG based on the N.K. Jemisin's Broken Earth trilogy. Welcome, Tanya DePass.
Do I get a fancy clip thing? The fun part of going after someone about your height, but not knowing where the mic is going to be. All right, so I'm just going to forewarn you, I don't see any small humans in the audience. I'm going to cuss a lot because the industry is in a state that makes me cuss. We'll figure out how I use the clicky thing in a minute because I'm not fancy. Where does it go? How do I click the thing? Oh, there we go. Look, technology has thwarted me already, and it's like 2 seconds in the talk. I'm not going to read that at you. That's just kind of like my credentials, my bona fides, so you wonder why they invited me here to keep talking about stuff. Because I hate when people read slides at me because we can all read. I'm not going to read it at you, but that's a little bit about me. And again, if you can get a signal, feel free to tweet anything I say. It's not anything I am ashamed of or will be ashamed of, because if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I'm kind of a jerk some days. All right, so I'm going to say this, and it's going to be a little weird, but diversity is a word where I really just want to go around going, fuck diversity, because diversity unto itself is now a buzzword. It's empty. It's a platitude. People go, well, I want to have a diverse cast. I want to make a diverse game. I want to have a diverse studio. You can't really have a diverse studio because people unto themselves are not diverse. And actually, credit to Anthokys on Twitter, because he actually had a really good tweet today, or they had a good tweet today, about how an individual unto themselves is not diverse. You can't hire a diverse person. You can have a diverse workplace. You can have a diverse studio. But we're going to talk about that, and there will be time for Q&A. For anyone who's ever seen me on a panel, when I say Q&A, I mean question, answer. I don't care about your backstory. I don't care about your life story. Just ask a question, and I'll tell you to go find it. You all laugh. There are people in this audience that have seen me moderate panels. I'm not joking. And I know I keep saying diversity is a buzzword, but it is. You know, people, this mic is very bouncy. Apparently I'm gesticulating a lot. But there's little value in just talking about diversity as a word, as a concept. Because if we're gonna say things are diverse, this room is diverse. There's a lot of different people in here. There's a lot of people of different gender identities, a different race, different orientation, etc. So what we need to do is actually look at inclusion, because inclusion means not just going, hey, tell us how we can do better and be slightly less racist than usual, slightly less sexist than usual, and we're gonna pat you on the head and thank you, maybe pay you and send you on your way, and then hopefully not fuck up the next time we try to do this. But inclusion means opening the door, letting people come to the table, stay at the table, and welcome them. It means when you have programs like, the GDC Scholarship Program, you're not just giving people a pass and some debt for a week in San Francisco to hopefully connect with people, you're checking in on them after, you're creating a community, you're bringing them in and bring them into your studios and other places where they can meet other folks and not just feel like, that was a great week, now what? Because so many people go on programs like that, or they go to Indicate. I don't know if Indicate still does, like the Intel diversity thing that I got a chance to use. But again, it was like, great, I'm at Indicate, and I've talked to some people, and I have never talked to those people again outside of professional peers I had after the fact. You have to ask, what is it you want to learn? Because people always go, well, I want to be diverse, but what is it you're learning? Are you learning because your studio screwed up, and now you have a PR issue? Are you thinking, well, we've made these games and we've looked at our games and everyone looks about the same. There's no people of color, there's no women that survive the game, that aren't traumatized, that aren't raped and harassed. Or are you just like, well, I don't want people to be mad at me on Twitter, I don't want people to hate our game, I want them to buy it, so I should be diverse, and then you get a checklist. How many people remember Colors of Benetton ads? Wow, not enough people. So they'd be ads where it was a beautiful ad, model, beautiful people, but they literally would have people like a different color outfit. They'd all look different. It would look like the Crayola box, like they tried to get the skin tone section of the Crayola box in one photo. And that's what I mean by that. And so we're going to talk about, toward the end, how to do better and how to get on a path. So, this is where the salt comes in. I hope everyone has some water. So, June is Pride Month, and every company, whether or not they have a good history of inclusion and LGBT issues or having out LGBT staff that stay there and are comfortable, rainbow everything appears from May 31st, 11:59:59, and disappears at June 30, 11:59:59. July 1st, it's like rainbows no longer exist with all these companies. And people think, oh, look, we're diverse, we're celebrating our queer employees and fans, except I don't want any more rainbow-colored shit. Show me that I can come to your company, I can work there, I can be a whole person. That's what's important. February, shortest month out of the year, that's when Twitch remembers that black people exist. Yeah, I said it, and I say this as a Twitch partner, I'm about to go to TwitchCon. But that is the only time that you'll see black folks highlighted on the front page of Twitch. And we only get 2-hour chunks, mind you. It's not like you can't find enough black people that are on your platform that are affiliates and partners to basically 24/7 have people focused on the front page. It's select people, 2-hour chunks for 28 days. That is simply not enough. Empty messages around Eid Mubarak, Ramadan, etc. How many women in the audience hate pink gaming accessories in March? Hi, Trin. Things like that. It's like, here, ladies' night and women in games and all these bullshit things we get invited to in March. And it's like, do you not remember we exist the rest of the year? Do you not remember that we are important at the C-level as designers, as writers, and everything else? And it's like, that's the one time they remember to celebrate the women in the industry while always pushing us out. How many women in the room know colleagues that are no longer in gaming? Myself too, but I'm talking. And it's not because they don't love games any less, it's because the industry, the state of the industry, and the way that they're treated, either in studios, by fans, a combination, pushes them out and turns them away from the very things that they used to love. Expensive events. We were just talking about at lunch about how much Game Developers Conference cost. You want to go for a whole week? That's a $2,000 pass. If I don't speak, I don't go. And it should not be at the point where you're either hoping and praying that you can get a pass from someone or that you can show your game or you can get into some program. Professional development shouldn't be for the few that can afford it or if their studio sends them. It's getting to the point where if you don't either know someone, you're not speaking, or you're not a CA, you can't go. And how does that help anyone? It doesn't. And the last thing, we're going to get more into depth in this, is asking marginalized people to come and talk about being marginalized. Ironic, because this is what I'm talking about right now, but I'm being salty about it because they let me keep coming back on stages. But when you invite us to talk about these things, and that's all you ever do, that shows me that you want to have your checkbox. When you go to a conference, you go to a convention, you go to PAX, GDC, what have you, and the only brown people you're seeing are on panels where it's like, the industry sucks, I'm brown, I can't get ahead, people don't care about my game, especially if you put black people in the game and you're black, because then it's an agenda. Which, yes, it's a fucking agenda, because I want people like me in games. You can laugh, it's okay. So I stole this tweet from my friend. Oh, come on, it's not a lie. How many times, even recently, have we seen tweets or stories where it's a panel about women's issues, and it's a panel of old white men? Not a woman to be seen was asked, and this is how we're in the state that we're in now, where we have a bunch of old white men making decisions for everyone, regardless of who is involved. Or diversity panels where it's well-meaning white people who, their heart's in the right place, I know it is, but you can't talk about an experience that's not yours. You cannot sit there and talk about what it means for diversity if you're not part of a marginalized identity. And granted, there could be a white person on the panel that does have some aspect of marginalization, but if I walk in a room and it's a diversity panel and this is what I see, I'm just going to turn around and walk out. because you have to find a balance. And again, we will get into all this. And if I'm talking too fast, just kind of wave at me. I get nervous and I talk a lot faster than usual. Because I also want to leave time for Q&A. So just what I was talking about. So how many people here work in a studio or do things where you find the nice, helpy white person or white people in the office, and they really care about diversity, their heart's in the right place, but then they do things like, let's have a food festival. Everyone bring their dish from home. Or they want to talk to you and they travel to Africa once and they think they know everything about Africa, which is a continent, not a country. Some people still don't know the difference. I heard giggles, it's still the case. Or the person's like, oh, well, they've got a black friend or they're interracially dating and they think they just know everything. I hate to tell you this, you don't. You literally don't know what it's like for that person to be there, a person of color, queer, etc., just because you're in some kind of mixed relationship. And again, meaning well is great, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And a lot of times you wind up with people where the person of color in the office, the queer person, is tasked with all of these things as if we can speak for everyone else in our marginalized axis of identity. And we can't. I can't speak for other black folks, I can't speak for other queer folks, I can't speak for other cis women, and I shouldn't be. But then you get the people that think, oh, well, this is what I know. And it's like, well, what you know is based on either stereotypes or what you've experienced or what friends have told you, but it's not the whole of our experience. A lot of times they think this is enough. That checkbox, I've got one black person, I've got one Latino woman, I've got one queer out person that's conventionally attractive and usually white. Look, I've done my part. You haven't. And a lot of times when we're reached out to, it's only about our identity. I don't know how many times people have reached out to me and want me to talk about, oh, well, you're a woman in the industry. Isn't it terrible? And I'm like, some days, yes. And some days I really love games. I love my colleagues. And it's amazing that I get to do what I get to do. And I don't want to fall in the trap of being on yet another Women in Games panel where all you do is sit there and bitch about how hard it is, because, you know, while it is true, if that's the only message you're giving people, how many women are going to walk out of that room discouraged? How many women are going to walk out of that room thinking games is not a place for them, and because they've heard it from other women, it's going to make it worse? Because a dude can sit there and tell me all day about how great games are, but he doesn't have to deal with the things that I would deal with. And the last thing, before we move on from this slide, is wanting authentic voices, but then telling us our voices are not authentic enough. If anyone is more on the book side, you may have seen the hashtag own voices. Same thing can apply to games, where people want to have a black character, they want to have a female character, they want to have fill in the blanks, and don't reach out because they watched The Wire, they watched Orange is the New Black, and they think they know, but they don't. But then we tell them, this isn't okay, this is a stereotype. Nobody wants to listen. So there's a dilemma. So hopefully I can get this to play. Where is Jordan? Can you get it to play? Sorry, there's actually a clip of Riz Ahmed talking that I would love for you all to hear. It's like 10 seconds, it's from a tweet, so it's short. Because I don't know how to make this play. Nope, it is not playing for me. Yay, technology. Can you get it to work? It's like streaming. Something goes wrong. Nope, okay. Well,
and representation, I don't like to talk about diversity. I feel like it sounds like an added extra.
Right.
It sounds like the fries, not the burger. You know, it sounds like something on the side. You've got your main thing going on, and yeah, let's sprinkle a little bit of diversity on top of that. and that's not what it's about for me. It's about representation, and representation is absolutely fundamental in terms of what we expect from our culture and from our politics. You know, we all want to feel represented. We all want to feel seen and heard and valued. So
Right.
I prefer to talk about representation.
You've done a great job of that, yeah.
yeah, it worked, sort of. Thank you, Jordan. So it's something that people do. They treat it as a moral and academic exercise, kind of like with racism. People talk about racism, it's like, because they think that racism is still people burning crosses and wearing hoods. But in this day and age, it's people wearing red hats. Yes, I said it. Get mad if you want, I don't fucking care, because I have to live here. It's people that, march with tiki torches and tan pants, etc., and then get mad when you find out who they are and they lose their job. So people treat diversity as a thing they can do and be okay. They can go hire one black person, not realizing being the only black person in any one space is incredibly difficult. It's demoralizing, it's hard, because then people go, well, I've got a black coworker, I can ask them. No, you can't, especially if I'm your black coworker. Don't ask me shit, because I'm going to give you a PayPal invoice. And they don't think about diversity being an all-encompassing state of existence in the world that we live in. Again, look around the room, look around this convention, look around other places that you visit. If it's not homogenous, you've got diversity, but do you have diversity of thought? Do you have diversity of the people that you are engaging with? Just to know that there's a black woman working on the 10th floor of someone in your building is not enough. You can't go, well, we got black folks, sure. The person who brings you your mail, that's not diversity. Do you have a black person at the sea level? That's my question. So allies, and I have that in quotations for a reason, because I hate that word. I hate it so much. Because people do things like wear safety pins and tell you that I donated to NAACP. Apparently I can't talk either, which is terrible because I'm on stage and you're listening to me. But they do the bare minimum and then want these kudos and these cookies. I'm sure people have heard the term ally cookies before. Yes, no, okay. I know it's after lunch and we're all tired, it's the end of the day. But they do the bare minimum. And it's annoying because I've had people go, well, I bought this game, I give like so-and-so $1 on Kickstarter or Patreon or whatever. I'm like, cool, are you sharing their work? Are you telling people about this great game that you backed or this work that you've seen? Are you doing that? Or you're just like, here's my $1 a month, I've done my bare minimum, I don't have to think about it. So I try to say accomplices, because if you call yourself an ally, I'm just going to give you the dirtiest look and go, well, you can't call yourself an ally. Someone has to bestow that upon you. So I say being an accomplice because you're being an accomplice to what I want to achieve, what someone else wants to achieve, and getting more equality and equity. Again, shallow representation is what matters, because having a checkbox representation, having one black character, but they're a total stereotype, doesn't matter. It's not good representation, it's breadcrumbs. And granted, for some people, breadcrumbs, they're at that stage where, oh my God, I get to see a black character. She may not live, but there was a black character for like half this game, and it's amazing. For me, I'm like, no, we need to be main characters. I want to be romanceable. I want to exist and live and thrive in these games. And the reason I like giving this talk is I get to be a little salty, because we're stuck at the one-on-one level. We're very much stuck at the one-on-one level. When you try to have that 201 discussion, especially among peers or other people, or forbid you try to do this on Twitter, I do not recommend that. You get the people that are very much stuck on, well, I want quality, as if quality and diversity inclusion are like parallel lines that will never meet. Me saying I want a diverse candidate, I want to have inclusion, I want to say X% of this project is going to be people of color, is not saying I don't want quality, because my name's on it, I still want quality. I can't speak for other people, but that's what I want. An example of this is when we put out a call for writers for the Broken Earth trilogy. And I asked people to signal boost it. We said, strongly encouraged people of color to apply, because it is a series of books by a black woman who broke a Hugo Award record. So while I'm not going to, one, I legally can't say it, but also I'm not going to say no white people can apply for this. When do you get to see a lot of people of color with major writing credits for an RPG? You don't, unless they've written it themselves or they've done some freelance. And I got so many responses to, well, what about quality? And I'm like, do you think that we're really just going to pick any old person because I'm a person of color and they're a person of color? I don't know about you, but that's not how I operate. And granted, I did get some solicits that read that way. They're not getting an email. So that's what I mean by the one-on-one level. We're still stuck at people going, diversity means less quality, it means lower quality, which isn't true. So just what it isn't. And the third bullet point makes me see red. It usually makes my block finger very itchy on Twitter. Because, I'm sorry, social justice is not a bad thing. And if you're a warrior, I want you there with me. Or a rogue, or a cleric, or whatever social justice class we are. And PC culture is a bullshit lie made up by angry boys on the internet. I'm sorry. I will never be okay with the term PC culture. And the last one I actually added from the last time I gave a talk like this because I did a panel at MagFest. And we were talking about, trigger warnings and content warnings. And it's a little bit of a sidestep. But we talked about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which I love the game. Assassin's Creed Origins. So, slight spoiler, if you haven't played the game, it starts with the death of a child. And I've got friends where that could be very traumatic. And had the game just warned them off bat, this is how this game starts, not give away the plot, just a child dies. You don't need to know the rest of it. They could then make an informed decision on whether or not they're okay to continue playing the game. Someone got up during Q&A and basically was like, well, you're forcing the artist's hand. You're making them change the game. And I'm like, how does this make anyone change the game? I'm giving the consumer, because we're supposed to be about consumer rights, or so you all say, you're letting me have an informed decision. Do I want to see this cutscene? Do I want to see this game? Do I want to play this game? Or are you going to unnecessarily traumatize someone without knowing? They're not setting out to traumatize people. But you don't know what someone's life is when they pick up this game. That could have been their escape. And if someone has lost a child, that's the first thing they see when they play this game, you're doing them a disservice. But, gaming is global. You'll never know that. So we were just talking about the possibility of this, and someone just got so angry about it. And we get that pushback a lot with diversity and inclusion, is that you're forcing us to put black people in games, or women in games, or queer people. You're forcing us to see this. I'm like, well, do you ever go outside? You do know that people like me exist. And if you go outside, you're going to be forced to see people like me. So I don't understand what you do unless you literally never leave your house. Agoraphobia aside, if you don't go outside, how is it you feel you're forced to encounter people like this? Same thing when I played Mafia 3. I love the game, and I freely admit it's because I got to throw an old mafioso in the swamp and an alligator ate him. When I saw that in the trailer, I was like, take all my money. But again, people were mad that they had to be a black dude in this game. It's like, well, you can turn the game off. I don't get that option. People like me do not get the option to turn off our blackness, our queerness, or fill in the blank, whatever axes of marginalizations that we have. You do. That is a luxury for you. You can sit here and be mad that you got to be Lincoln Clave for how many hours. You turn off that game, you're still a white dude in real life. I do not get that option, which is why that one always kind of annoys me, because that's what people think. So this is what it should be. And I have done for the right reasons with an asterisk, because a lot of people think the right reason is simply not to have the internet mad at you, to not have money losses, to not have people not buy your game. The right reason is really a moral imperative to do what you should do and include everyone. And granted, everyone's not going to fit in a game, and I don't mean that in the very literal, you must have one of everything, because then it's bad diversity checklist. But when I talk to companies, when I talk to studios, I often go the mercenary route and go, money. If people don't see themselves in your games enough times, they're going to stop buying your games. If they stop buying your games, you'll eventually go under. It may not be immediate, but if I see nothing but white bro dudes in your games, I'm not going to buy them. And multiply that by how many people don't buy your games, and it could be a bad thing. But also, gaming is global. It's not the 18 to 35-year-old white dude in his mom's basement anymore. It never really was. But you can't market and you can't make games that way anymore. Diversity and inclusion, you should be open to feedback and collaboration. And I'm going to say this because I know I have some game dev friends in the audience. If a game does something you do not like, or you find racism, you find sexism, screaming on them at Twitter is not going to make a difference. It is going to get you blocked. It's going to cut off an avenue of discussion. Find a forum, find some other way. And also, white friends in the audience, if you see something and you think it's racist, you can speak up, but don't speak over us. Or if it's sexist, homophobic, fill in the blank, unless that too is part of your identity. Because a lot of things that will happen is people will see something, they'll get mad about it, And they'll go yell at the developers on Twitter on someone's behalf, or they'll DM someone. This is the other thing I'm going to talk about. Don't DM brown folks asking for permission or asking us if something's racist. Because you know what? I've probably seen it. I probably am tired of it. And I don't care. And other brown folks too, because if we spend all of our time creating outrage entertainment because you thought something was racist, that means I'm not getting any work done. So, take a minute, think about it, and if you honestly can't know if something is racist, homophobic, then gently say, hey, I'm on the fence, I want to reach out to a developer, can you give me a gut check, versus demanding outrage response, because so many people will send me stuff and go, aren't you mad about this? And I'm like, nah, I have things to do. Or I've seen it and I just don't care. Today is not a day where I have the energy for it. And that's where coming back to stepping out of your depth, because sometimes the story just isn't yours to tell. Get diversity consultants, and that's actually on the next slide. But also, it's not just games. I know we're talking about games here this weekend, but the diversity inclusion is a problem with all industries, especially worse in the tabletop side. I talk about streaming and tabletop because, like I said, I'm on a D&D show. Our show is the only show I know of that is all people of color. And there's an official D&D show. I know there's other shows, but in terms of being an official WotC show, but most shows that you're going to find on Twitch or other places are the same bearded white dude. Please, for the love of God, get out of England and go find other people to play D&D with. Some of them are my friends, but there's a limit to how much of the same bearded white dude I want to see every time I want to watch a tabletop show. And then this is just about conventions, because how many people go to PAX or GDC? And how often can you find the brown and other queer folks not in the diversity lounge? Not very often, right? Or not on panels that are not talking about such things. All right, so the last thing before we get into Q&A, I just want you to think about these things. This is the please take photos, or I will send you the deck later. Think about what you're doing. Think about your audience, because what you do once it's out in the world is going to get beyond you. It's not just you and your buddies making games anymore. These are just things to think about. Again, I'm not going to read them at you, because if I read them at you, it will be annoying, and we're all adults. But please take photos, or if you want, find me, and I'll get your email and send you the deck. But this is one of these I do want to talk about. Why isn't your content inclusive? And it's not just who you know, it's who don't you know. If you look around your studio, if you look around who you're creating with, and everyone looks the same, take a minute and think about why that is. Is it that you don't know anyone who makes games who's a person of color, who's queer, who's disabled, neurodivergent? Or is it just you've kept your same circle of friends, maybe from college or game dev circles or what have you? Interrogate why. And it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to dislike it, but ask yourself why. And then ask yourself what you're going to do to rectify it. And again, I repeat, just don't randomly DM brown folks on Twitter asking what you can do to be less racist, unless you are willing to send some money to go with that question. So this is what I'm going to leave you with as action items. Seek out creatives. And by this, I mean find people that are making content that features people unlike yourselves. If someone's making an RPG, Swordsfall, very Afrocentric, very Afropunk, look at that and go, cool, and then don't assume it's not for you because the creator's black and it's primarily black content. That doesn't mean that you can't play the game, and if you do assume that, think about why. And then the last part is about if you're making content, especially if you want to tell stories that are not yours, get a sensitivity reader for the love of God. If you cannot pay for one, try to barter for one or figure out what you can do, because it's going to be very apparent when someone plays your game, reads your content, sees whatever you put out in the world if you didn't get one, especially if you do tropes and stereotypes and things like that. It's going to be terrible, and then you'll get the backlash and the cycle will continue. And what happens is a lot of people go, well, I tried and people are mad at me and I'm never going to make anything again. I'm just going to make what I know. Except, how many people here have met a dragon? If anyone raises their hand, I've got questions for you. So things like that, where think about if you are trying to tell a story outside your experience, be it a game, a book, a visual novel, what have you, get a sensitivity reader. And yes, you should pay people. You should absolutely pay them. But a lot of indie game devs don't have that kind of money, so figure out a way to barter that. All right, I have no idea how much time I have because I talk a lot. So we have 20 minutes, so you can have Q&A. And if you don't ask me a question, I'm going to tell you to go find it. So you can ask a question. I don't bite. Yes. Hello.
We're trying to ask you 2 questions.
Well, sure. We have 20 minutes, so make them good.
Okay, I'll do my best. I forgot my second question, that's good. I usually, whenever I'm trying to be more inclusive and include people not within my demographic in any way, I feel like I usually end up kind of falling down a mental rabbit hole of like, oh no, but what if it's misinterpreted as this? What if I do this wrong? What if I don't know about this? Or even if it has nothing to do with like the person's identity in any way. Do you ever have that problem?
With creators or things that I'm making or both? Sometimes, but you know what? I've reconciled myself to the fact that no matter what I do, someone's going to be mad at it. Because, one of my friends, she's also in her 40s, black woman, grew up on South Side Chicago. Our lives are nothing alike. And so something I could write from my experience may not speak to her. And there's always going to be someone on the internet who doesn't like what you do. They're not going to like you. And if I spent all my time worrying about the what ifs, I would never create anything again. You can do your due diligence, and if people bring up, it's like, well, I got a sensitivity reader, I did this, and I understand that everything it's not going to please every single person, but I did the best that I could. And then I would turn around people, well, what is it you would have done? And not in a snarky way, although I'm very tempted to be snarky when people do that. Ask them, well, clearly something about this bothered you. Do you mind telling me about it? And then if they just want to argue with you, then they just want to argue to argue. You have to tell when someone's coming to you in good faith. And if you do something that hurts someone, receive that, apologize authentically, and then try to have a conversation if they're open to it. And just go, I'm sorry that I've hurt you. If you have the energy for it, do you mind, explaining what specifically hurt you, and then talk through what you've done. And again, it could be nothing you knew about, because again, games are global. Something that you put in a game that was from your experience, your heart, could then bother or hurt someone else, and you have no control over that. So don't worry about the what ifs, because you will get stuck in a rabbit hole of what if this, what if that, and you'll never create anything again. Just do your best, put it out in the world. And if people are mad, try to have a dialogue, and sometimes people aren't open to it, and if they are, great. And if they're not, then there's nothing you can do about that. You can't force a conversation. Other question? Yes?
All right. I've been trying to figure out how to construct this in my brain as late as I'm here. But I am a black game creator. And the biggest trouble that I find that I run into is that people expect certain out of you because of your skin color. So they expect you to write certain characters or design.
Oh, they want your characters to all be from the hood and be a baby's mama and
Yes.
talk a certain way.
And so my question is, how do you handle that? Because I've even seen outside of other types of communities, especially like the makeup community, if there is a black person that's in this area and they're known, they're kind of like, the queen or the king of black. So how do you
So I'm gonna be real salty right now, because we saw this with Black Girl Nurse and Jamie Broadnax and FanCon and how it failed. So for those that don't know the context, there was a convention supposed to happen last April. There was supposed to be Universal FanCon, touted as kind of a for us, by us convention, and it failed. A week before the convention was supposed to happen, the Hyatt, Hilton, whichever convention center they had, canceled because they hadn't got paid. And then it turned into basically, well, the community didn't support us. And it was this whole thing of how dare you not support this person because she's the person in terms of being the black geek out there, the black female geek. And people do that. They put you on a pedestal. Or they go, well, you're a dark-skinned black woman, so therefore XYZ must be your traits. Well, almost like they're doing character creation in a game. But I remind people that we're not a monolith. Because we don't know each other, but we're both black women. And there's certain things where I can give you that look, where people have said things, they do things, where we could have that moment of exchange like, I got you. But then there are other things where Maybe you grew up affluent, I didn't. There's going to be a lot of things where people want to ascribe certain phenotypes, for lack of a better word, or personality traits or something, and then they're mad when you don't fit the square peg they're trying to put that round hole in, which was totally backwards, but you know what I meant. Because they figure they know you, as in they know what black people are. They know what black women are like because all these stupid shows have showed them the sassy black queen, the sassy stereotype, what have you. And it's like, well, that's not me, because I get people that assume a lot of things about me. I just traveled to Dublin not too long ago, and I got a lot of, well, that's expensive. And I was like, I know. I'm here. I looked at the exchange rate. I know what it costs. All you can do is be yourself, and then when people go, well, why doesn't this character talk a certain way? Why doesn't she, sound like, someone from Orange is the New Black, because someone tried to get me to watch it because it's black women. I'm like, it's black women in prison, no thank you. Because if they're basing everything they think they know on you as a person, on a stereotype or media, then clearly they have no actual black friends. So you can only put your work out there when people criticize it. Well, this isn't accurate. This isn't black. People just go, well, who in the room is the actual black person? And why are you trying to tell me what my experience is? Because I've had white people argue with me about what my experience is. That they're sure that I must not be college educated, that I must not, because I can bring out the $25 words if we want to and turn this into an academic lecture, but people don't want to hear that. They want you to fit a very specific idea and image of what they think a black woman is. And you are messing with their idea of reality by doing that. So do what you're going to do, and then when people push back, go, well, you go find the media that shows me someone that you expect, and then look at what I've done, because the black experience is not a monolith. And that's just what I always respond to people. We don't all know each other. I know it's a surprise, because I don't even know your name. I've never seen you before. Shocking. I know we don't all know each other. But this is my project. This is my work. You can either experience it, or you can go somewhere else and reinforce that stereotype, because you don't have time for people that are so narrow in their focus that they cannot listen to you. They cannot experience something outside of what it is they think they know. And sometimes just be like, fuck you, I'm out. I'm gonna go do what I'm gonna do. Yes, in the back. Okay, wait, do you have a question or are you replying? If it's not a question, keep it till later. Oh, yeah. Okay.
How do you actually recommend someone pretty much presenting, or like I would think you would more so like if it's your story, you give your story, and like you said, you grab a few other people to come in and
Yeah.
assist with giving that story. But I think with what I'm seeing, it seems like you would want to step forward and add and put the people of color in that place, because it is like.
So is your question is how do I bring up other people with me? Or how do I bring that representation into projects? So here's a tricky question, because on the one hand, yes, you should absolutely do that. You should bring it up when you can, but a lot of us also need our jobs. I'm lucky in that I work for myself. I can't fire myself, but not everybody has that privilege. So bring it up, but you have to walk the walk and learn and wear the mask. For those of us that know that phrase, there has to be the office version of you sometimes. And as much as I hate saying this, it's how I survived 16 years working in academia and didn't like pop off and get fired. you have to bring it to people in a way that they're going to listen to. If that means the dollars and cents of, if you don't have enough people of color, if you don't have any people of color, and we know the people consume this game, they consume this media, and look at the stats of who's watching, who's playing a game, and go, you're missing out X% of revenue if you don't represent people, because they're not going to see themselves and they're not going to buy it. You have to do the mercenary thing of, let me give you this corporate talk so that you can realize this is what I need to do and this is what I need to have. And then you shift it. Once you get their attention and get their resources, then you go do the work. Does that make sense? And I know it's terrible, and I sound like I'm saying sell out, but use the oppressor's weapons against them.
Well, that was what I was looking at, because I don't create games, I'm a UX design student, so I'm looking is the benefit. You know, I wonder if people are comfortable in their creation, getting someone that researches that can actually enlighten them.
Oh, they do. I mean, there are people who do the work. I do the work. I've gone to studios. I've collaborated with a lot of folks. I can't say exactly what I've done, but I work with Ubisoft on Far Cry New Dawn, which has 2 black female characters in it. I've done a lot of work, and there are a lot of people who are also doing academic work, because you can also kind of bring that academic angle in as well and look at studies, look at statistics. The IGDA, the International Game Developer Association, does a report every year called the Developer Satisfaction Survey, and in there the diversity numbers are in there, and there's less than 1% of black developers that self-report as being part of the industry. So that's where you can also bring that in and go, there's not enough people like me making games, I want to fix that, what can we do? If a diversity initiative comes up, first see how much work it is besides your actual work, and then go, this is something I believe in, how can I help in a way that's constructive? Because if you get it on the ground floor, get your hands in it early, then you can help shape it. If it's already kind of going, then be wary, because a lot of times the black folks in the room will be the person that winds up doing all the work with none of the credit. So look at things, like sit down and study the games that people are playing, like look at Monster Hunter World. A lot of people put it down, myself included, because there was not good representation of the character creator. And now there's curly hair, like most of our hair. I actually went out and spent $40 and picked that game up again because of representation, because I could see myself in this game. So positive examples where people are not going, oh, look at this excitement, look at what people are happy to see. And again, it's all empirical evidence you're bringing back to those people. We can go, here's all this evidence. They can't ignore it. I mean, they can, they might, but you've done the diligence of, here's all this empirical evidence of what people are excited about. Look at these tweets, these people are like crying in joy over just having hair like theirs in a game. And you can't ignore that. So things like that where you're bringing an evidence-based case to someone and you go, look at this, you can't ignore it. Yes?
What's your take on how to get people more comfortable with talking about, clearly people are uncomfortable talking about it. I've had interactions in and out of conversations. Do you have any best practices? Do you have any suggestions? Because personally for me, I would like it to get to a point where we're all going to be let's just have a conversation. What advice would you give?
First off, stop hiring like the conventionally attractive white gay dude to be your head of D&I. Y'all laugh. I've seen that in so many companies. Get the people who have the life experience and do a survey, do a town hall, but do it in a way where people can speak without recrimination, because a lot of times when there are D&I conversations to be had, people don't want to talk because they're like, ooh, what if I say it's used against me? And having been the loud black chick in a lot of conversations when I worked in higher ed, it can absolutely be used against you. But I would say bring it up in a being proactive way, because a lot of D&I comes in a reactive way. Like something bad has happened, you've had a game, you've had some backlash, what have you, and now they're like, oh, what do? We got to fix this, our public image. Be proactive about it. Think about, we know we're coming out with a game, we know that our protagonist is female, we know how people are about this. What do we do in advance? And also come up with ways to push back against the arguments against it, And then look at your numbers. Again, look at, if you have HR data, how many women are employed at your office? Are there out queer people? Are there folks that are, I hate saying this, and I'm not going to say it. Are there people that you can show to be part of your studio culture that are not just white game bros? And if you can't, that's your first thing. Look at your hiring practices. So you're going to have to deep dive into your data, like rate of attrition, who's come in. Do you have a lot of black people who work there and don't stay a year, that don't stay 6 months? Are you looking at who's in management? You have to do all those things and compile your data, and then have that conversation of, this is where we are. We are not maintaining best practices. We're not doing a lot of things that the industry even says we should do at the baseline, let alone being good at it. And appeal to people's vanity. Don't you want to be one of the best people in the field? Don't you want to be a studio that people hold up as a best practice? Not just because you had like 1 or 2 games of brown folks, but because you actually believe in this at the studio level and you bring people up. And I got the 5-minute warning, so that's just my contact info, and I can take one more question if it's quick. Yes.
So I was wondering, what do you think is more important in the game? Finding like representing people in struggles that they win and face in life, different political climates, or do you think it's more effective to create games where it has these characters, but it's like
That's subjective, because for me, games are an escape. I don't always want that in my games. That's going to be hard, because what I find personally important, it may not matter to someone else. What should matter is you have characters, you have dialogue, you have narrative, where the characters are not flat, especially if they're people of color, if they're queer. Like if you have a queer character and everything's like, oh my God, I'm queer, my life sucks, I wish things were better, that's tiresome. I'm sure there's actual people who may feel that way, but if I'm playing a game and all the character does is moan and complain, and that's the core of their angst, I'm not going to want to play it. Other people might. They might find it cathartic. So that's a hard question, because it's so subjective. If other people have a good answer, we're almost at time, so we can chat out in the hall about it. But what I would want is, the narrative does address things like politics or race or what have you. Don't do it half-assedly. Go hard or don't go at all. And I think we're at time. So thank you.